Alright, first things first, I have a cold. I'm sick. I'm gonna power through these videos as quickly as I can. So, without further ado, I saw Civil War two more times since the screening a few weeks ago. And if I gonna let you know now, if I cough or anything like that, ignore it. I'll try to cut out some of it, but yeah, whatever. So, yeah, I saw Civil War two more times, and we're gonna talk about it in spoiler detail. And I'm gonna make a separate video on why I chose Team Cap. Because I'm going to address that in a different video, though. So, without further ado, let's talk about this movie. So, this movie opens up with, well, we're not going to talk about the opening scene, but we're going to talk about the opening action sequence where they're going after Crossbones from Winter Soldier, who, funny tidbit about the comics, I'm going to let you know now, this is all spoilerific. Spoiler, hold the movie, spoiler. So, but yeah, continuing. Crossbones actually assassinated Captain America in the comics. I know he didn't deliver the killing shot, but he was the first one to shoot him. So yeah, just a cool tidbit. Um, but yeah, eventually, Cap catches up with Crossbones and he finds out that he has a bomb on him. But before he realizes this, he clicks the detonation button, I guess you can call it, and it's all contained, and Scarlet Witch is containing it, and then she throws them up into well, not I almost said orbit, into the sky, and then accidentally she lets go of him basically, and this building explodes, and a lot of people died. So Scarlet Witch immediately feels responsible for this. So now the government wants to control the Avengers and use them as a tool to exercise their will and agenda, which we'll get into all of that in the other video. But Iron Man's has his side saying, yeah, we need to be controlled. We need to let them control us. We can't kill a bunch of, or we can't have a whole bunch of people die, because it shows you footage from the past movies with like cell phone cams of people that died while they were saving the Earth, basically, and it works. I get the motivation behind Tony. He has a guilty conscience, I should say, not cautious, conscience. I can't say that word now. So I get that side of the argument, but we're not going to talk about that here. But Cap's like, no, we can't be controlled. So now they have two clashing ideologies, and they fight. But we'll get to the fights later. Um, so next up in the movie, we have Zemo, who is introduced. Which in my review I mentioned I didn't like Zemo. After seeing it a couple more times, I don't mind him as much. I feel like he wasn't necessarily needed to tell the story, but he was the likable presence. I like Daniel Bruhl, I think is how you pronounce his name, in that role. It worked. I like the tragedy of his character. He keeps replaying this message of his wife speaking, and you find out that she's dead, and it's really sad. It sucks, and you kind of understand him more. So I like that. Everyone in this movie has a motivation. That's what I enjoyed about the movie. So, continuing on with all the we're gonna talk about Tony for a minute here. Tony is still like pushing back his feelings about his parents' death, and we'll get to that later. But in like one of the opening scenes of the movie, this I think this scene directly after the whole Crossbones thing. He has he's at MIT and he's giving this presentation, and it's basically showing you how he feels about and what he should have done before his parents got killed, and I like that. It gives some good motivation for later on, and we'll get into that later. But continuing on, I'm just gonna jump right to the whole Spider-Man thing. We'll talk about the airport scene in a minute. But I'm gonna jump to Spider-Man for a minute, and then I'll talk about Black Panther. Spider-Man. I loved Spider-Man in this movie. It's my favorite on-screen Spider-Man we've had yet. I love Tom Holland in this movie. It was the perfect Peter Parker. He was a teenage kid reacting to everything that he saw and fanboying out, because he's not a big superhero. Yay, look, I'm Spider-Man. I'm the best thing ever. He's not that way. He's a dumpster diver. He's a poor kid. He hasn't been at this long. He's only had this power for 6 months in this movie. So it works. His suit looks like crap, but Tony gives him a new suit, and he fights along with him in the airport scene. But the writing for Spider-Man was perfect, and I loved it. And Hot Aunt May, I'm just gonna mention her here. Doesn't have much to do. It's a typical Aunt May thing. She just worries. We'll talk about the after credit scene later, but yeah, I love Spider-Man in this movie, and we'll get to the. Well, actually, no, we'll talk about it right here. His humor is great too, because when they're at the airport, he's like, "Hey, Cat, big fan," and like, he grabs Bucky's arm, and he's like, "Whoa, dude, you have a metal arm? That is awesome, dude!" It was funny. It works, and all the talking he does during the fight, he doesn't know how to fight, and it's cool. I like it. So Black Panther. Black Panther is awesome. I love Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa. I think I pronounced that right. You understand his motivation for wanting to kill Bucky Barnes because he's he's technically responsible for his father's death, and Hydra is using these certain words to like it sets Bucky off. I'll just say that. There's a certain set of words that turn him into soldier mode, and he can't control it. He's a victim in all this. He's a very tragic character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it works. And that's what I loved about Bucky in this movie. I understood that side of the argument too. So, but we'll get to the whole argument thing later on in the next video. But it was interesting. I liked it. So, yeah, Black Panther, it works. The action's great. The whole chase scene where he's trying to kill Bucky, it works perfectly. It was a great scene. And this guy is out for blood, and I really like that about this movie. So, continuing on with the whole Bucky thing. So Bucky's responsible for a lot of deaths. We already know this from Winter Soldier, and they're trying to kill him at this point. After this whole bombing incident, they're trying to kill him. So Steve finds him obviously, and they escape. And then that leads into the chase scene, and I'm doing this out of a lot of context, I know, but talk about what I can think of first. So, yeah, that all happens, and it will actually continue on Bucky later, because that comes into play. There's so much crap going on in this movie that if I forget something, I'm going to be really sad. But Scarlet Witch, she is OP as frick. She is so OP in this movie. She defeats Vision, she just junks him through like freaking 50 floors of building, and she taps into his Infinity Stone in his head, and it's cool. She's really awesome in this movie. I love Scarlet Witch, and it works with her and her kind of feeling responsible about this whole incident with Crossbones. She feels responsible for this, and Hawkeye eventually gets her out of this compound that Tony wants her to stay in just for the time being till the the Sokovia Accords are passed. So, but Clint, Hawkeye, gets her out of there. Vision's not toast or anything, but she just dunks him through all this towards the building, and that's that. So, I'm finally going to lead up to this airport scene. Ant-Man's introduced again. It's great. I loved it. There's humor in this fight. I love that. As I said, Spider-Man gets some great lines. But Ant-Man turning into Giant Man, that was one of the coolest parts of that whole fight. And mentioning the fight, yeah, it's a revolutionary scene. People are going to, this is going to go down in history as one of the best comic book movie scenes ever. Or sequences, really. It's like a 15-minute scene, so it works perfectly. I loved it. Everyone has their own moment to shine. And Black Widow, she's playing both sides in this, so she helps Steve and Bucky escape after Steve finds out that there's more Winter Soldiers than Bucky. And pretty much all of Steve's team gets captured, or not captured, but arrested and put in this prison under the sea. So that's that. I just kind of skimmed over the fight, didn't I? Well, we're not really talking too much about the fights. We're talking more about the story here. But they go to find these Winter Soldiers, these new other Winter Soldiers, and while they're doing this, Tony goes to talk to Falcon about where Steve went, because he's like, I guess he's kind of right about this. He's starting to agree with Cap here. So he goes to say that he's on his side and all that stuff. And then they find the villain in this fortress that they go to. And there's this TV monitor that shows up. And there's a wreck at the first scene of the movie. So we have that established. And then it shows the footage of that wreck, and then Tony's just like, I know this road. Like, what is this? And at that moment, the first time I saw this movie, I was like, no, no, oh God, no, not this. Yep, Bucky killed Tony's parents, and Cap knew about it. So now Tony's pissed, and I understand why Tony's pissed, but we're getting into all that later. He's just trying to kill Bucky. Cap's trying to kick his, well, yeah, and Cap kind of succeeds at that eventually. Like, they have a brutal smackdown, but he finally jams his shield into Tony's arc reactor, and I don't know if, I don't, sorry, I'm skimming over all this. I have a cold, so I'm trying to, before I lose my voice, I'm trying to get through this thing. But yeah, he jams it in his arc reactor, kind of kicks Tony's butt here, and as Bucky gets his a metal arm blasted off, and as they're leaving, Tony's like, "You don't deserve that shield. My father made that shield." I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, "Eh," and he drops it on the ground, and then he leaves, and that's the last time Tony and Cap see each other in this movie. Um, but with that, we're gonna kind of wrap up at the end here. He sends a letter to Tony basically saying, "Sorry we couldn't agree on the accords, all blah blah blah. Hope we're still friends," basically, after all this crap happened. And yeah, Tony's obviously probably still pissed about his parents, but Bucky's still alive, so there you go. But so basically, yeah, he's saying, "You ever need me, I'll be there," and then he shows up at the prison to bust his team out, and it works. I like that ending. It works. I almost like. I think it would have been cool if Cap would have died, just to add some more emotional weight to the movie. But we already had enough with that heartbreaking scene with Tony's parents, so it worked for me. I liked it. Um, the mid credit scene. The mid credit scene, we see T'Challa, aka Black Panther, um, helping Cap and Bucky by putting Bucky back under the ice. Because there's a certain set of words that set him off, and he finds his mind dangerous at this moment in time. So he goes back under, for the best of the, like, I don't know, the world, I guess, and that's that. They show part of Wakanda, and it's really cool. But then there's an after credit scene that I'm glad I got to see the second time I saw it, and the third time, because when I went to the screening, they only had the one credit scene. And the second credit scene is with Peter Parker in his room. Aunt May is fixing up his black eye. She asks who did this to him, and he says Steve from Brooklyn, which I really like that. And then when she leaves the room, he takes his web shooter, gets the projection, or sees a projection on the ceiling, and it's the cool Spider-Man symbol or emblem, I guess, more or less. And that's how our movie wraps up, kind of. I mean, that's not how the movie wraps up. It's just how the scene wraps up. But yeah, I love Captain America: Civil War. I don't have really many flaws with the movie. I mean, the villain's still kind of useless in the long run, but I like his motivation more. That's really my only problem with this movie. Other than that, it's my favorite movie, or comic book movie since The Dark Knight, and yeah, I loved it. I can't wait to see it a fourth time. Whoops, sorry about that. Yeah, I'm gonna have my video up on about Team Cap, all that. After this, I don't know exactly when, but soon. But yeah, so that's my review or spoiler video, review of Captain America: Civil War. So peace.